Hey buddy, it's your old pal Scott, and this is Let's Talk Tabletop. Today I wanted to discuss the whole 3D printing and Games Workshop thing. Now I know, it's been covered to death on YouTube, but I have a slightly different perspective, I think, coming from my background and what type of gamer I've always been versus what type of gamer I may be becoming. So let's get into it. We all know that 3D printing is a looming threat to Games Workshop. Now, I know a lot of you may not be agreeing with that because they go, oh, record sales for the last couple years, and that is true. Games Workshop has had record sales in the last couple years, partially due to the pandemic and all of that, where people were at home and they picked up the hobby because they needed something to do, and maybe they got burned out of video games or whatever, but also partially because of their price hikes. We've seen some serious price hikes in the last couple years from Games Workshop, specifically for Americans. Now, I've also discussed in the past how let's say, the new Tomb Kings box set is 170 pounds, I think it is, right? If you do the actual conversion rate to USD, that ends up being $230. Okay, well, that's not too bad. Wait a second, what's the actual price for US citizens? It's $290. That's insane. Now, admittedly, this is a very complex issue. I'm sure I'm going to get a lot of people in the comments saying different stuff. But they do have shipping to the US and things like that. They've got employees to pay for, etc. I am in no way against businesses making money, right? But the problem is the writing seems to be on the wall that 3D printing is only going to become more prevalent, and Games Workshop's going to have to do something about it. As of right now, the way I see it is their whole strategy has been to raise prices and take the money while they can. And that's essentially what it is. They're just grabbing as much money as they possibly can, because I think they also have to agree that their time of being a miniatures company and not a rulebook company is definitely coming to an end. It might be in 5 years, it might be in 1 year, it might be in 10 years, but it's going to happen. In 2021, there was over 20 million 3D printers sold in the US. In the US. So obviously that doesn't mean 20-something million people got a printer, because there are companies that literally just print on Etsy and things like that. So that isn't entirely 20-some million players with printers, but keep in mind that these stores sell to people like me that don't have a printer. So this has slowly been my slippery slope that I'm getting into, and I've got some examples here today. Now let's talk about my background as a wargamer. I know this may seem ancillary and not important to the story, but it actually is, because I feel like I am a symptom of a much larger change in the wargaming community. I've been playing Warhammer 40k and Age of Sigmar for 15 years now. Almost half my life I've been playing Warhammer. And I've always been a diehard support the company kind of guy, okay? And I've got like 24 armies between 40k and Age of Sigmar. I have like 23, 24. I'd have to actually count them up, but that's how many armies I have. And I mean full armies. So I think I'm a little bit extreme of the end, because most Warhammer players have 1 or 2 armies, where I have 24. My friend James has like 28. He has almost every single army of both systems. So, coming from that, you know that I don't mind supporting Games Workshop. I've never minded it. I know they're a company. They need to make profit. They need to make money, and they sell miniatures. And I feel like if I don't support the game with my money, the game is going to fall. It's going to fail, and then I'm going to miss out on all my friends that I've made through Warhammer. And of course, I have my convention Shorehammer and all of that. The point is that if someone like me is starting to have doubts about supporting Games Workshop, then I feel like that's a bigger problem. That's not just me. Now, when you take into consideration the recent inflation and the cost of living going up and all of that, and the fact that I have 4 children and obviously a wife, well, that kind of makes life pretty expensive, right? And in the last year or so, I've been finding myself more and more interested in getting stuff 3D printed. Not because I hate Games Workshop. And yes, I have bought Games Workshop product. I've bought a bunch of Cities of Sigmar units. I bought Seraphim units. Um, those are just off the top of my head. But I've bought stuff. I think a Necron unit and Beast of Chaos unit. So I have bought stuff from Games Workshop. But sometimes, even I, the die-hard customer of 24 armies in 15 years, even I sometimes go, this pricing is absolutely ridiculous. I was driving to the game store the other night talking to James, and I said, James, how much do you think a battle wagon is on the website for Games Workshop right now? Now, I saw this and it blew me away, okay? James is like, I think they're like $80, right? I said, oh, no. They're $115. $115 for a transport. That is absolutely insane. And then I saw the Magmadroth. I started looking at Age of Sigmar stuff. And the Magmadroth, was part of the Start Collecting, right? A couple years ago. The Start Collecting was $80 for Fire Slayers. And the Magmadroth alone is $115. That is insane to me, okay? Now, I know this is going to be possibly another video of Old Man Yells at Cloud. I get it. And I am not getting younger. I also get that. And maybe all the kids nowadays are just fine throwing hundreds and hundreds of dollars for a basic transport out the window. The problem is I am right smack dab in the middle of Games Workshop's demographic. I'm in my 30s, and people 20s to 40s is basically their major demographic. And do you know what people in my demographic have in common? Cost of living, children, mortgages, families, work, all of that. Any of you guys that play Games Workshop now got into it at what age? Probably teens, maybe 20s. That's when it was much more affordable for teens and children and people in their 20s to get into it. The problem is that I've got some teens. I run a library group monthly for teens for Warhammer. And then I've got a couple teens or preteens in my gaming club at the store. And in both cases, they don't buy that much stuff. Like, they have to wait for their birthday or wait for Christmas or whatever. And then what do they get? They get a unit? I mean, if the kid wants a battle wagon, it's $115. I mean, unless your parents are rich or something, $115 is a ton. And then you have to be like, well, do I really want this battle wagon at $115? So I feel like Games Workshop is slowly pricing themselves out. And I know this has been the complaint all along, and Games Workshop really is a premium hobby. I get it. It's like golf or horseback riding or any of that. There's going to be cost. But the problem is, I don't see any 3D printers printing horses, okay? I don't see any 3D printers printing entire golf courses. It's not happening. But what I do see is 3D printers printing models. And last time I checked, Games Workshop's main MO is selling models. So they can't just stick their head in the sand and go la 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 with their fingers in their ears. They just can't do it. Because with 20-some million printers sold in 2021, that's a lot. How many you think were sold in 2020? How many think you were sold in 2022? How many think you were just sold in 2023? That's a lot of printers and a lot more competition for Games Workshop. Now, we really can't deny that Games Workshop has excellent quality in their miniatures. Their miniatures look cool, they're distinctive, all of that. But the price is outrageous, okay? Now, I've got a couple examples here. Just some things I pulled off the shelf that were just good examples of Games Workshop being ridiculous, and how I've slowly been going to Etsy for some of my Warhammer stuff, and it's just because, I mean, look at your grocery bill. Like, it's insane. And if you have children and all that other stuff, life is very expensive. So, this is a Troggoth Hag, okay? And this Troggoth Hag is 3D printed. I got this Troggoth Hag for $30 on Etsy. $30. The real Troggoth Hag is like over $100. Another thing that I got was 3 of these guys for $20. Now, admittedly, she looks pretty much like the Troggoth Hag. These guys look a little different. They're like Creature from the Black Lagoon type people. But you still see they vomit, they've got the weapons and all of that, and they're obviously aquatic. Well, to me, I thought they looked pretty cool, and being that the Fellwater Troggoths were sold out I kept looking at them for over a month, they were sold out, and I wasn't going to pay eBay prices, I decided, you know what? Let me take a look at Etsy. Let's just happen to take a look at it. When I did, I found 3 of these dudes for $20. Do you know how much 3 of them is from Games Workshop? $60. One of these guys from Games Workshop is $20. I got 3 of them for $20. Now, obviously, this is not quite piracy because the models are different, but obviously this dude, whoever printed this off, is a small company. He's not a giant corporation. He doesn't employ thousands and thousands of people. I get that. But my point is unlike horseback riding or golfing, Games Workshop does have competition. This is a Ridge Runner for Gene Stealer Cult. This is also 3D printed, and the reason why is that I can get 3 of these for the price of a real Ridge Runner. Now, does it look exactly like a Ridge Runner? No, I did have to add the little guy up top and things like that, but it's good enough for me. If I'm staring down the barrel of, $300 grocery bills, do I really care at the end of the day? And remember, die-hard Games Workshop supporter, die-hard Warhammer player, proponent of Warhammer wherever I go, and Games Workshop and wargaming in general, doing the library club and demoing at the store and having a convention and all of that. I mean, I am definitely one of the biggest proponents of wargaming and Games Workshop. $300 grocery bill, 3 Ridge Runners for the price of 1. Gotta do it. Like, I literally have to do it. So I should have hopefully illustrated by this point that I'm not just some printer bro that's like, oh, I print my whole army. To be honest, these are only the few resin things that I think I have printed. I might have 1 other unit printed, but the point is that if I am doing this, more people are doing this. And as printers become more ubiquitous and everybody has a printer, Games Workshop's going to be in trouble. It's no-brainer. And the real diehard Games Workshop people can be in denial all they want. You can say, oh, they're doing great. They're doing great this year. Are they doing great next year? Are they doing just as great the following year? We'll have to see. But logic dictates they're not going to. They're going to eventually hit a wall here. And they're slowly pricing out their actual customer base. Me and James were talking about it, and we were both saying, this is just ridiculous. I don't even want to buy new stuff anymore. I'll buy the occasional thing to support my local store. And then, I'm pretty much done. Now, admittedly, I've been in it for over a decade. So in the maturity of a wargamer, you do slowly stop spending. Whereas a new player would be spending a lot more. But the difference is when I was paying all that money for my 24 armies, prices were like 70% of what they are now. Like sometimes 50%. Other games are infinitely cheaper than Games Workshop. You see these Judge Dredd miniatures right here. This is Judge Dredd on bike and Judge Dredd on foot. They came in a box for $25. It might have been $29. Let's say $30. Let's say $30 for Judge Dredd and Judge Dredd on a bike. Now, I bought this for brutality because I'm making a Judge warband, okay? I'm not playing Judge Dredd. But the point is that, what was that miniatures game called again? Oh yeah, Judge Dredd miniatures game. Interesting. Well, I imagine the leader and the main character everybody loves, I bet he's really expensive. No, he's not. $30, let's say. Let's round up and say $30. You get him on foot and him on a bike for $30. And you know what? You might go, well, you can only use one or the other. Actually, no. The person's made removable because the bike is autonomous. So you actually are getting 2 models. The title character for $30. I bought whole squads of 5 guys for $25 or $30, and that doesn't sound like much, right? That you're like, oh, well, that's the same as Games Workshop. Okay, the difference is Judge Dredd is a skirmish game, right? Games Workshop isn't. You literally buy 1 Judge Dredd. Like, you literally buy 1 riot control squad. Like, that's what you do. Versus Games Workshop with I need 60 of this or 100 of that, right? So I think, hopefully, you're getting what I'm saying. Let's go on Etsy now. And we're going to compare a couple of the Games Workshop model prices to the analogous Etsy prices. All right, we've got a Slan Star Master for $85 versus $36 on Etsy. Exocrine, $80 versus $40 on Etsy. Fellwater Troggoths, $55 versus $17 on Etsy. Troggoth Rock Guts, $60, Games Workshop, $26 Etsy. Lehman Russ, $65, $35 on Etsy. Bloodthirster, $160, $60 on Etsy. Primaris Aggressors, $60, $14 on Etsy. Apothecary, $40, $15 on Etsy. So what do you think, guys? Is Games Workshop's time really that limited? Are their days numbered because of 3D printing? I think the writing's on the wall. Sooner or later, it's going to be. But you tell me exactly how you feel. How do you feel about resin printing? How do you feel about resin printing actual facsimiles of Games Workshop models versus just proxies? How do you feel about all that? And how do you feel about all the crazy price hikes? I know this is a well-tread topic, but it's really hit me hard recently. Anyway, I would love to thank all of you for watching and liking, subscribing, and commenting. And I'd also love to thank all my beautiful, sexy, good-smelling Patreon patrons. Thank you so much for supporting the show. I'll see you next week, guys. This week's episode was brought to you by Patreon patron Leroy Jenkins, who assures me that toilet paper works way better when soaked in bacon grease.